By the time Ryan called me from Dallas, I already knew something was wrong. I could hear children yelling, paper plates shifting, music from a speaker, adults talking over each other. It sounded like a normal birthday party. But when Ryan handed the phone to Lily, my 8-year-old daughter said, "Hi, Mom," in a voice so small I almost asked if she was standing outside alone. That was not Lily. Birthday parties usually made her louder, not quieter. She talked too fast. She forgot details, then added them back. She laughed while she was still speaking. That night, every word sounded careful. Then Patricia came on the phone and said, "Everything's fine, Emily. The kids are just excited." That was the first thing that didn't make sense. Ryan had taken Lily to Noah's birthday because I was working a hospital shift in Austin. The party was at the family house in Dallas, the house Patricia loved because it made every gathering feel like a performance of wealth. Before they left that morning, I had helped Lily get dressed. She wore a pale blue dress, brushed her hair twice, and asked if her pink shoes looked nice enough. I kissed her forehead and said, "You look beautiful." Now I hear that question differently. Ryan came back on the line and said, "She's okay, just tired." "Put her back on." He did. I asked, "Did you have cake?" "Yes." "Did Noah like his presents?" "Yes." "Are you having fun?" A pause. Then Lily said, "It's okay. Tell me honestly. Would that have felt normal to you?" I knew my daughter. I also knew Ryan's family. They did not always insult people directly. Patricia preferred polished little cuts. Charles used money the way other people used weather, always present, always setting the tone. Vanessa liked to smile before she said something mean, as if the smile erased it. From the beginning, they had treated my job like proof that I came from the wrong world. I was not Emily, a woman with a profession, a schedule, and a life. I was a nurse, useful, ordinary, beneath their sun. Ryan understood it because he had lived under it his whole life. His parents wanted him in a career with status they could display. Instead, he chose teaching and research. They never forgave him for caring more about meaningful work than impressive income. The fact that he married me only confirmed in their minds that he was determined to live below his level. Still, we tried to keep the peace. We kept visits short. We ignored comments. We told ourselves Lily was too young to notice how adults looked at each other across a room. We told ourselves we could manage the discomfort if it meant fewer fights. I was wrong about that. When they got home that night, I opened the front door before Ryan even reached it. He walked in first carrying gift bags and leftover cake in a white box. Lily followed him with both hands wrapped around her purse strap. She did not run to me. She did not start talking. She stood in the hallway as if she were waiting to see what this house expected from her. That changed everything. I crouched to hug her, and her shoulders were stiff under my hands. Her hair still smelled like the strawberry spray I had used that morning, but the rest of her felt shut down. "You hungry?" I asked. She shrugged. At dinner, she pushed food around the plate and never looked up. The scrape of her fork against the ceramic sounded louder than it should have. Ryan kept glancing at me, then at Lily, as if he wanted the evening to smooth itself out if we all acted normal enough. "How was the party?" I asked. "It was fine," Ryan said. "See? She's just tired." I looked at him. "That's not fine." Lily kept staring at the plate. I asked, "Did something happen with Noah?" "No." "With Chloe?" A tiny shrug. Ryan sat down. "Mom said there was some kid drama around the games. That's all." I said, "Normal kid drama doesn't make her sound like this." He rubbed his forehead. "Emily, I'm not saying nothing happened." "Then what are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe it got bigger in the moment. Maybe I was wrong. But it did not sit right with me." After dinner, Lily asked to go to bed early. No dessert, no story, no details about cake or presents or games. She just disappeared down the hall and closed her bedroom door. Silence from Lily was never small. It was a warning. I turned to Ryan. "Call Patricia." He hesitated, then did it. She answered fast, like she had expected this. "Mom, Emily's worried," he said. "What happened?" Patricia laughed softly. "Nothing happened." Lily had trouble fitting in with the other children. It was a busy party. I said, "Why did my daughter sound upset?" She wasn't upset. She was embarrassed because she made a scene. My hand tightened around the chair back. "What scene?" "Oh, Emily." Her voice went cooler. "Children notice differences. That's life. She needs to learn how to mix without taking every comment as an attack." Ryan said, more sharply now. "What comments?" Another pause. Deliberate. The children were playing with expensive things. Feelings got hurt. It is not the end of the world. I asked, "Did someone say something about me?" She answered too fast. "You are making this bigger than it was." That was answer enough. When Ryan ended the call, he kept staring at the dark screen. "Do you believe her?" I asked. He looked tired, but something in his face had shifted. "I don't know," he said. I did. I went to Lily's room. Her lamp cast a soft yellow circle over the blanket. She was still in her dress, knees tucked up, staring at the wall. I sat beside her and waited. Finally, I said, "You do not have to protect anyone tonight." She turned toward me. Her eyes were dry, which somehow hurt more. "Mom?" she asked. "Yes, baby." "Do I look poor?" For a second, I could not breathe. I kept my voice steady. "Why would you ask me that?" Her fingers twisted the blanket. "Because Noah said my shoes looked cheap. Chloe said my dress was from the kind of store people use when they can't afford better. They said I don't look like their kind of family." I did not interrupt. She kept going, now in that flat little voice children use when they are repeating something they did not understand but will never forget. "They said you were a lowly nurse. They said Dad should have married someone richer. Noah said I couldn't use the VR because it cost too much and I would probably break it." She swallowed. "When I went to Grandma Patricia, she said I was making it worse and told me to sit by the trash so I wouldn't be in the way." I felt the room go cold. Lily finally looked at me. They called me trash side. That was when I understood this was not children being rude. Children do not invent language like that on their own. They repeat what they hear. They perform what adults allow. "Would you have stayed quiet after that?" I kissed Lily's forehead and told her, "You did nothing wrong." Then I walked into the hall and found Ryan waiting for me. He took one look at my face and said, "What did she say?" I answered with 5 words. "They sat her by trash." Ryan went very still after I told him. For a second, he looked like he had not heard me clearly. Then he said, "What?" "She asked Patricia for help," I said. "Patricia told her to sit beside the trash can so she would not be in the way." The kids started calling her trash side. The hallway light cut a hard line across his face. I had seen Ryan angry before, but this was different. This was the look of someone finding out a private fear had been true for much longer than he wanted to admit. He went into Lily's room with me, sat on the edge of the bed, and asked her to tell him exactly what happened. She did, in pieces. Noah said her shoes looked cheap. Chloe said her clothes did not match their level. The adults' words had already been passed down into the children's mouths. Lily repeated the phrase lowly nurse with the puzzled care of a child handling something dirty. Ryan closed his eyes for a second. Then Lily said the part that changed him completely. "She told me not to stand near the game," Lily said. "Grandma Patricia said it was expensive, and some children are more used to how things work." Ryan looked at her. "She said that?" Lily nodded. Then Noah said, "You heard her." The room was very quiet after that. Ryan asked, "Did Grandpa Charles say anything?" Lily shook her head. He just looked. "And Vanessa?" "She told Chloe not to be rude." Lily paused, but she was smiling. That detail stayed with me. Not because it was dramatic, because it was familiar. That was how Vanessa did things. She liked the shape of innocence after the damage was done. I tucked Lily in and waited until her breathing settled. When I came back into the kitchen, Ryan was already dialing Patricia again. This time, he did not put softness in his voice. "Mom," he said, "Lily told us what happened." Patricia answered, "Children exaggerate when they feel left out," Ryan said. "Did you tell my daughter to sit beside a trash can?" A beat of silence. Then, I told her to move out of the traffic in the room. There were many people there. You put her by the trash. Oh, for heaven's sake. It was a practical suggestion, not a moral event, I said. And when they started calling her trash side, Patricia sighed like we were the difficult ones. Emily, it was a joke that got carried away. A joke. There are words that change the temperature of a family. That was one of them. Ryan said. Noah called Lily poor. Chloe insulted her clothes. They repeated things about Emily. Where did they learn that? Patricia did not answer directly. She never did when truth would sound ugly aloud. Instead, she said, "This is exactly the problem. Lily does not yet understand how to be around children from certain environments without feeling judged." I said. She was judged. Charles came on the line then. His voice was lower, flatter. "You are turning a child's awkward afternoon into an accusation against the family." "No," Ryan said. "You did that." Vanessa's voice rose in the background. "Oh, please. She couldn't use one game. This is what happens when kids are never taught resilience." That was when I stopped hearing explanation and started hearing confession. "Maybe you see it differently." "I did not," Ryan said. "You called my wife a lowly nurse around your children, didn't you?" No one answered. He asked again, slower. "Did you?" Patricia finally said, "We have always worried that Lily is being raised without the right social preparation. That is not cruelty. That is concern." For the first time since I had known him, Ryan laughed at his family without any warmth in it. "Social preparation?" he said. "You humiliated my daughter." Patricia snapped. "Do not use that word with me." "What word?" "Humiliated." Ryan's voice got quieter, which made it sharper. "Then give me a better one." Nobody did. When the call ended, the kitchen felt stripped bare. Ryan sat down at the table and pressed both hands over his face. I did not say anything for a while. He had to walk the rest of the distance himself. Finally, he said, "I knew they looked down on you." I stayed silent. "I knew they looked down on me too," he said. "But I thought I could manage it. Keep it controlled. Keep it away from Lily." He looked up then, and there was no defense left in him. I was wrong. That mattered. Not because it fixed anything. It did not. But because I was no longer standing alone in what I had seen for years. The next morning, Lily moved through the house carefully, as if she were trying not to make extra noise. She got dressed for school and asked if her sneakers looked okay. Not cute, not comfortable. Okay, that nearly broke me. I knelt to tie one lace that did not need tying and said, "You never have to earn being treated kindly." She studied my face like she was checking whether that rule was real. On the drive to school, Ryan said, "We're done." "With what?" "With all of them. Mom, Dad, Vanessa. No visits, no calls with Lily, nothing." I looked out the windshield for a second before answering, "You mean that?" "Yes." He tightened both hands on the steering wheel. I let this go too long because I thought peace was better than confrontation. But peace that costs Lily her dignity isn't peace. That was the line I had needed him to cross. We called Patricia once more that afternoon, together, mostly so there would be no confusion later. Ryan said, "Until further notice, you will not have contact with Lily." Patricia answered in that calm, dangerous voice of hers, "You are punishing a whole family over childish misunderstanding." I said, "No. We are responding to what you chose to allow." Charles got on and said, "You are isolating the child over hurt feelings." Ryan said, "No. I am protecting my daughter from people who taught their children to measure her." Vanessa sent a long message after that. Half offense, half performance. She said Chloe had been joking. She said Noah was immature. She said everyone had tried to help Lily fit in. She said I had always been sensitive about class because of my own insecurities. She said Ryan was letting me pull him away from his family. That line told me everything. Families like that only believe in unity when they still control the terms. At first, a few other relatives reached out and tried to soften it. Maybe Patricia had handled it badly. Maybe Lily misunderstood. Maybe the house had been crowded. Maybe the children were showing off. Maybe everybody needed time to calm down. But nobody asked the right question. Why was my daughter the child they thought it was acceptable to sort? Ryan answered every message the same way. He kept it short. Lily was insulted. Emily was insulted through Lily. Patricia did not protect her. We are done discussing it. He did not argue. He did not explain past that point. At home, the effects lingered with Lily in small, painful ways. She stopped reaching for bright clothes first. She hesitated before showing me drawings. Once, while I was folding laundry, she touched the sleeve of one of my scrubs and asked, "Do people think your job is bad?" I sat down right there on the floor beside the basket. "Some people think money tells them who matters," I said. "They're wrong." She leaned against me but did not answer. "I still wonder what you would have done." The only person from Ryan's side we kept seeing was Eleanor, Lily's great-grandmother. She lived quietly, spoke carefully, and had never once treated me like I needed to apologize for existing in the family. When we visited her that weekend, Lily sat beside her on the sofa and held a glass of lemonade with both hands. Eleanor noticed the change in her right away. "What happened to my girl's smile?" she asked. Lily glanced at me. I said, "You can tell her." And this time, she did. Eleanor did not interrupt Lily once. She sat in her high-backed chair by the window with both hands folded over the head of her cane, listening in complete silence while Lily told her everything. The room smelled faintly of tea and old books. Afternoon light rested across the rug. Outside, a sprinkler clicked somewhere in the yard. Inside, every word from Lily seemed to land and stay where it fell. "Noah said my shoes looked cheap," Lily said. Eleanor nodded once. "Go on." "Chloe said I wasn't their kind of family." Eleanor's face did not change, but I saw her fingers tighten slightly over the cane. Lily looked down at her glass. "They said Mommy was a lowly nurse. They said Daddy should have married somebody richer." Ryan exhaled slowly through his nose. He had already heard it, but hearing it in that room gave it a different weight. Less like a painful misunderstanding, more like evidence. Then Lily said, "Grandma Patricia told me to sit by the trash so I wouldn't be in the way." Eleanor's head lifted. "She said that herself?" "Yes." "And the children called you what?" Lily hesitated. I said softly, "You can say it." Trash sighed. The word hung there. Small, ugly, impossible to dress up. That was the moment the room changed. Eleanor looked at Ryan first, then at me. "This happened in my house?" Ryan said, "Yes." "Not their house. Hers." That detail mattered more than I understood at first. The Dallas house had always been presented by Patricia and Charles as the center of the family. Holidays, birthdays, summer visits, polished silver, old money manners. They moved through it like owners. They spoke from it like people who believed the setting itself proved their superiority. But Eleanor's question cut straight through that performance. "This happened in my house?" Not, "Did it happen?" Not, "Are you sure?" She had already accepted the truth. She was deciding what it meant. Lily nodded. Eleanor turned to me. "Why was I not told immediately?" There was no accusation in her voice, only clarity. I answered honestly. "Because I was trying to understand how bad it was before I came to you." She looked at Ryan next. "And you?" Ryan said, "Because I should have seen sooner what they were doing. I didn't." Eleanor did not soften that for him. "No, you did not." He took it. He deserved to. Then she faced Lily again and her voice gentled. "Look at me, sweetheart." "Lily did. You were not in the way," Eleanor said. "And you were not the trash at anyone's side." Lily's mouth trembled. She put the glass down before it slipped from her hands. That sentence did more for her than any long speech could have. If you had heard it in that room, you would know what I mean. We stayed another hour. Eleanor asked only a few questions, each exact. Who said what first? Who was in the room? Whether Charles heard it? Whether Vanessa corrected Chloe? Whether Patricia moved Lily or suggested she move? Lily answered carefully. Ryan filled in what he had seen and heard. I added the phone call, the dismissal, and the way Patricia framed it all as a lesson about fitting in. Eleanor listened without once defending any of them. At one point, she said, "They always confuse position with character." That line stayed with me. Before we left, she said, "There is a family gathering in Dallas next week." Ryan stiffened. "We're not bringing Lily around them. You are not bringing her around them alone," Eleanor said. "There is a difference." I looked at her. "What are you planning?" She adjusted the blanket over her knees. "I am planning to correct a lie while everyone who benefited from it is still comfortable." That was the first time I felt the balance begin to shift. The days before the gathering were strangely quiet. Patricia sent nothing to us directly. Vanessa reached out once to Ryan, pretending concern. She said the family was heartbroken. She said everybody was upset by the interpretation being spread. She said Noah and Chloe were children and should not be punished for adult overreaction. Ryan replied with one sentence, "Children do not invent class prejudice alone." She did not answer after that. A few relatives still circled the edges. One aunt called and said she hated to see families divided. A cousin texted Ryan that Patricia had been in tears. Someone else suggested that Patricia and I simply had different communication styles. I noticed how often people use vague language when the truth is too ugly to say plainly. Nobody wanted to repeat the actual facts aloud. Lily, meanwhile, was still living with them in her body. She was quieter at breakfast. She watched adults more carefully. At the store, she asked the price of things she had never cared about before. One evening, she brought me a pair of shoes from her closet and asked, "Are these the kind people laugh at?" I held the shoes in my hands. Pink, slightly scuffed, perfectly ordinary. My throat burned. "Not in any room that deserves you," I said. That was not a line for comfort. It was a line for truth. We talked to Lily about the family gathering in simple terms. Ryan told her, "Great-Grandma Eleanor knows what happened and wants to speak about it in front of everyone." Lily asked, "Do I have to talk?" "No," I said at once. "Only if you want to." She thought for a moment. "Will Grandma Patricia say I'm lying?" Ryan answered this one. "She might try." Lily looked down. What if people believe her? There it was. The real damage. Not just that she had been mocked. That she had learned power. Can make adults rewrite what happened while you are still standing there. I sat beside her. "Then we keep telling the truth anyway." She nodded, but slowly. "Would you have trusted them after that?" The morning of the gathering, we drove to Dallas in near silence. Ryan kept both hands steady on the wheel. Lily sat in the back with a paperback open in her lap, but did not turn many pages. I watched the highway slide past and thought about all the years I had spent making myself smaller to avoid open conflict with Patricia. All the dinners I had survived by changing subjects. All the times Ryan and I had left and told each other that at least it had not been worse. That was the trap. We measured harm by whether it had become undeniable yet. Now it had. When we arrived, the house looked exactly the way it always did. Long driveway, trim hedges, dark front door, too much polished wood inside. The same silver-framed family photographs arranged to tell one version of history and erase the rest. Patricia greeted people at the entrance in a cream blouse, perfectly composed. Vanessa moved from room to room with a glass in one hand, laughing too quickly. Charles stood near the dining room, talking to two relatives as if he were hosting something important instead of standing inside a lie. The sight of them acting normal made my skin go cold. Lily took my hand before we went in. She held on tightly. Inside, a few relatives fell quiet when they saw us. Patricia came toward us with a smile already in place. "Emily," she said. "Ryan." "Lily." Her eyes lingered on Lily for half a beat too long. I said nothing. Patricia turned to Ryan. "I'm glad you came. We should speak privately before this gets any more unfortunate," Ryan said. "No, just that. No explanation. No softening." Vanessa appeared at Patricia's shoulder. "Everyone is worried. You've made this sound so ugly." I looked at her. It was ugly. She smiled without warmth. Children say silly things. From somewhere behind us, a new voice said, calm and firm, Then let us discuss exactly which children learned them from which adults. The whole room went still. Eleanor had arrived. Eleanor did not rush. That was part of why the room fell silent so completely. She came in slowly with her cane, one careful step at a time, but nobody mistook that for weakness. Her presence moved ahead of her. Conversations stopped. Glasses lowered. Even Vanessa, who usually filled silence the second it appeared, said nothing. Patricia recovered first. She pasted on a smile and walked forward. "Mother, you should have told us you were coming earlier." Eleanor looked at her and said, "You already arranged things. Poorly. You could have heard a breath drop in that room." Charles stepped in with that measured tone he used when he wanted to sound reasonable. "This is not the setting for family tension," Eleanor answered. "A child was humiliated in this setting. It will do." There it was. No softened language, no cover. Lily stood close to my side, her hand wrapped around two of my fingers. Ryan moved slightly nearer to us both. Across the room, I saw several relatives glance at Patricia, then away. Nobody wanted to be the first to admit they already suspected more than they had said. Patricia lifted her chin. "If this is about last week, the situation has already been distorted beyond recognition." Eleanor turned her full attention on her. "Has it?" The question was simple. It landed like a blade. Vanessa laughed lightly, too lightly. "Children can be dramatic, Grandma Eleanor. We all know that." Eleanor said, "Yes. Adults can be dishonest too. We all know that." Vanessa's smile disappeared. I still remember where everyone stood. Patricia by the console table with the silver bowl, Charles near the doorway to the dining room, Vanessa beside the staircase, one heel angled inward. Ryan at my left shoulder, Lily close enough that I could feel the pull of her hand, a line of relatives along the sitting room, suddenly fascinated by nothing. Some moments never leave in pieces. They stay whole. Eleanor asked, "Lily, would you like me to speak for you, or would you like to say it yourself?" Lily froze for a second. I felt her grip tighten. Then she whispered, "You can." Eleanor nodded. "Very well." She turned back to the room. At Noah's birthday, Lily Carter was mocked for her clothes and shoes. She was told she was not of the right class. Her mother was called a lowly nurse. Her father was insulted for not marrying money. She was denied access to a game because it was considered too expensive for her hands. When she sought help from Patricia, she was told to sit beside the trash so she would not be in the way. The children then called her trash side, while the adults responsible failed to stop it. Nobody moved. Then Patricia said, with controlled outrage, "That is an inflammatory version of a childish misunderstanding." Eleanor's gaze sharpened. "Did you or did you not direct Lily to sit beside the trash?" Patricia answered. "I told her to move to a quieter area." "Beside the trash?" Patricia hesitated. That hesitation said more than any denial could have. Charles cut in. "This language is unfair." Ryan spoke before Eleanor could. "Unfair was my daughter being sorted in front of your family like she had to qualify for basic respect." The room shifted again. Ryan had never challenged them like that in public. His voice did not rise. It did not need to. Patricia looked at him as if he had broken some older rule. "Ryan, really?" He said no, not after this. That was the second reversal. She could no longer lean on his obedience. Vanessa folded her arms. "Noah and Chloe are children. They repeat nonsense all the time." I looked at her. Exactly. That one word landed. Maybe that still wasn't the worst part. Because the ugliest thing in that room was not what the children had said. It was how hard the adults were still working to preserve their own image instead of Lily's dignity. They would have let her carry the shame if it meant they did not have to carry blame. Eleanor seemed to understand that too. She let the silence stretch until it became uncomfortable. Then she said, "I have listened carefully. Now you will listen." A man in a dark suit stepped forward from near the entry hall. I had seen him arrive with Eleanor but had assumed he was helping her with the drive. I knew immediately I had been wrong. Patricia frowned. "Why is he here?" Eleanor answered, "Because unlike the rest of you, he understands the value of clear arrangements." The lawyer opened a folder. You would not have had to know anything else to realize the air had changed. He said, "At Mrs. Eleanor's instruction, I am here to make a formal family notice regarding the Dallas property." Patricia's face lost color first. "Just a little. Enough," Charles said. "This is absurd." The lawyer went on as if nobody had spoken. "The Dallas residence is solely owned by Mrs. Eleanor. Effective immediately, ownership control has been placed into a trust benefiting Ryan Carter and Lily Carter." No one made a sound. Then Vanessa said, "What?" The lawyer continued, "Patricia, Charles, and Vanessa hold no future interest in this property under the present arrangement. There are moments when shame moves across a room like weather. I watched it happen. Not on Lily, not on me, not on Ryan. On them." Patricia stared at Eleanor. "You cannot be serious." Eleanor's voice was almost gentle. "I am entirely serious." Charles stepped forward. "Mother, this is emotional blackmail." "No," Eleanor said. "It is consequence. That line should have been carved into the wall." Vanessa looked at Ryan as if he had engineered the whole thing. "You brought her here for this?" Ryan answered, "No. You brought yourselves here years ago." The lawyer spoke again, precise and calm. "Mrs. Eleanor has also instructed that the current occupants are to make arrangements to vacate. Further details will be provided directly." Patricia made a small sound then, not quite anger, not quite disbelief, more like the crack in a structure that had assumed it would stand forever. "This is because of one child's feelings?" she said. Eleanor replied, "No. This is because a child was shown exactly who among you believed she mattered less." That was the moral center of the whole story, and everybody in that room knew it. A few relatives tried to disappear into neutrality. They looked at the floor, at the mantel, at their phones, anywhere but at the family structure collapsing in front of them. Others stood still with the expression people wear when they realize silence has made them complicit. Nobody defended Patricia then. Not out loud. Would you have called it a misunderstanding after that? Patricia tried once more. Lily was never in danger. I finally spoke. "Humiliation is harm." She turned toward me. "You always wanted to make this family into villains." "No," I said. "You did that the moment you asked my daughter to sit beside garbage and thought she should learn from it." Her mouth opened, then closed. Ryan put his hand at the center of Lily's back. She leaned into it. For the first time since that party, I saw something change in her face. Not joy, something steadier. The look of a child realizing the adults who failed her were no longer controlling the story. Eleanor lifted one hand slightly, and the lawyer closed the folder. "Enough," she said. "This house will not be used to humiliate my great-granddaughter again." Nobody argued with her after that. The room never recovered. Once the lawyer closed the folder, the gathering stopped, pretending to be a gathering. The food stayed on the sideboard untouched. Conversations broke into low fragments. A few relatives slipped out early without saying goodbye. Others came near us with careful faces, trying to decide whether sympathy now would erase cowardice from earlier. It does not. Patricia stood by the fireplace for a long moment, one hand braced on the mantel, still trying to hold herself in the posture of someone wronged. But the center of gravity had shifted too far. Eleanor had named the harm. Ryan had refused obedience. Lily had been believed in the room where she had been diminished. There was no smooth way back from that. Was I supposed to stay quiet after all that? Charles attempted one last appeal to dignity. He crossed to Eleanor and said in a low voice that was not low enough, "Public humiliation was unnecessary." Eleanor answered, "Then you should have objected when it was done to Lily." He had nothing after that. That was the shame transfer complete. They had made a child carry it first. Now it belonged where it should have belonged from the beginning. Vanessa tried another angle. She came to Ryan instead of to me. That told me she still believed I was the easier one to dismiss, and he was the one she might recover. "You know Mother overstates things," she said. "This has gone far beyond what happened." Ryan said, "No. It has finally reached what happened. Children tease. They repeated you." Vanessa's face hardened. "So this is it?" You're letting Emily cut you off from your own family? Ryan looked at her without hesitation. You lost access to my family when you helped mock my daughter. That sentence was one of the cleanest things I have ever heard him say. Lily heard it too. I know because she turned and looked up at him with the kind of surprised relief a child shows when a door finally closes against the cold. We left soon after. Not because we were defeated, because we were done. There is a difference, and that difference matters. On the way out, Eleanor asked Lily to come to her. Lily stepped forward slowly. Eleanor touched her cheek and said, "You never have to sit where someone else tries to place your worth." Lily nodded, eyes wide, as if she wanted to store every word somewhere safe. That was the last thing said in that house before we walked out. The aftermath unfolded quietly, which somehow suited the whole story better than any loud revenge could have. Patricia, Charles, and Vanessa had to face the property decision for what it was. They were not merely embarrassed. They had lost standing, control, and the house they had long used as a stage set for their version of the family. Vanessa's family had to move. The relatives who had tried to defend Patricia at first became noticeably less certain once the facts had been spoken in front of Eleanor and a lawyer. One by one, the messages stopped. Silence can be mercy. It can also be surrender. We kept our boundary exactly as we set it. No contact with Patricia, no contact with Charles, no contact with Vanessa, no access to Lily. No second chance offered just because enough time had passed for them to feel inconvenienced by consequence. People like that often believe the true injury is being denied another opportunity to do the same thing more politely. Not with us. At home, healing did not happen in one speech or one weekend. It happened in small returns. Lily started asking for bright clothes again. She put the pink shoes back on without checking my face first. She laughed more at breakfast. She interrupted herself with stories the way she used to. Once, at a store, she reached for a dress, held it against herself, and said, "I just like this one," without asking whether somebody else would approve. I almost cried right there between two racks of children's clothes. Ryan changed, too. He was gentler with Lily, but firmer with the world around her. When a relative tried once more to push him into reconciliation, he said, "This is not a disagreement. This is a character issue." Then he ended the call. Cleanly. No debate. No apology for the boundary. That mattered to Lily as much as any comfort did. Children notice not only who hurts them, but who continues making room for the people who did it. Eleanor remained in our lives exactly as she had always been, but now with nothing hidden, we visited her often. Lily relaxed around her completely. On one of those visits, months later, Eleanor handed Lily a small tin of shortbread and said, "A house should tell you that you are welcome before anyone else has to." Lily smiled and said, "Yours does." I watched Eleanor's eyes soften. Mine did too. The lesson of all this was never about property, though I would be lying if I said the trust changed nothing. It changed practical things. It changed who held power. It changed who could not use a house as a weapon anymore. But the deeper change was simpler than that. Lily learned that what happened to her had a name. Ryan learned that peace without respect is only a slower kind of damage. And I learned that the moment a family asks a mother to stay quiet so a child can keep being mistreated, the answer has to be no. Not later, not after one more holiday, not after one more careful conversation. No. There were still moments when Lily remembered. Sometimes while tying her shoes. Sometimes when a school event felt too crowded. Sometimes when another child said something careless about money, and I saw her face pause for half a second before she recovered. Harm does not vanish just because justice finally arrives. But justice gives the hurt somewhere else to go. It stops the child from carrying all of it alone. If that had been the end of the story, it would have been enough. But what mattered most was what stayed true after. We did not reopen the door. We did not rename what happened. We did not trade Lily's safety for anyone's comfort. Any person who could not respect our daughter lost the right to be near her. That became the rule in our house, and unlike the rules in Dallas, it was clear, clean, and evenly kept. Lily is happy now, not because she forgot, because she knows she was believed, and the people who called her trash had to leave the house. That was enough.